You're listening to Fanfiction Factory, the show that takes you to parts unknown with familiar faces and familiar places. And now, the only person who's seen Bigfoot and lived to tell the tale, Draco from Gatorbox.
Hang on. You got that backwards. You got the wrong Bigfoot. I have seen Bigfoot, but it's the truck. It's Bigfoot the monster truck. They had him parked at the Firestone Tires near where I live. They had him parked up on a couple of junk cars. It was really cool. My brother and I went to go see it. We took some pictures. I'll show them to you later. Anyways, that's Nintendolt, everybody. Thank you, Nintendolt, for the intro. I certainly appreciate it. So I'm Draco from Gatorbox. This is Fanfiction Factory. And on today's episode, we're going to be reading a story dedicated to the late, great Steve Irwin. Hence the title of this episode being Crikey, which was his catchphrase, something he would say whenever things started going haywire on his show, The Crocodile Hunter. So we've chosen a story that's actually based upon Captain Planet and the Planeteers, dealing with Steve Irwin as he's perceived to be a quote-unquote eco-hero. So, we're gonna explore a little bit of Captain Planet. Do you guys remember Captain Planet? You guys remember when Cartoon Network or Turner Broadcasting tried to make a superhero that made saving the environment cool? They tried to make that cool, and nobody apparently paid attention. At least none of the people in charge of, industry. That sucks. So, like I said, today's story is about Steve Irwin, and it's about Captain Planet and the Planeteers. The title of the story is A Hero Lost, a tribute to Steve Irwin, and it was written on September 10th, 2006. So, the summary of the story goes, a tribute to Steve Irwin, the greatest animal lover of all time. Gaia, Cap, and the Planeteers mourn the loss of this beloved and well-known eco-hero. Mati takes his loss especially hard, and the group comforts him as best as they can. Mati woke up on the morning of Monday, September 4th, 2006, to blinding sun coming through the window. Suki was sitting on his chest, and Mati touched his ring and whispered, "Heart." Suddenly, Mati got a wave of sad feelings from the other people of Earth, his fellow Planeteers in particular. He grew confused and leapt out of bed, rushing to get ready. He was completely ready in 10 minutes, including a shower and washing his hair and brushing his teeth and such. Once he was finished, he ran to the common hut and saw Linka, G, Wheeler, and Kwame sitting sadly at the table. Linka and G were sobbing, and Wheeler and Kwame looked like they might cry at any moment. Captain Planet stood looking very sad and solemn, and Gaia looked extremely sad as well. Wait a minute, Mati thought, and turned and did a double take. Captain Planet's here without the use of my ring? Something's very wrong here. Guys, what's going on? Why does everyone look so sad? And why is Captain Planet here without you guys getting me up and using my ring? He inquired, causing the group to look up at him. Wheeler cleared his throat, but when he spoke, Mati could hear that he was choked up. Well, we called Cap using just our rings today, little buddy. We don't need him to be at full power, 'cause there's no eco-emergency. Actually, we called him here because we thought you could use some extra comfort. Mati suddenly got scared. What is it? Is it my grandfather? Is he unwell? He inquired, fear prominent in his voice. Wheeler quickly spoke up. No, Mati. I'm sorry for giving you that impression. But Mati, something has happened. An eco-hero died this morning. Mati, and we know you would take it especially hard. He got up from the table and went and rested his hands on his friend's shoulders. Mati, Steve Irwin died this morning. Oh. Sorry. I'm just imagining it. I shouldn't be laughing. Oh. Oh. Okay, come on. A wave of disbelief washed over Mati. No, it can't be. How could he die? He was such a good man and he knew what he was doing with animals. He can't have died. You must be mistaken. Wheeler looked down. I wish I was, little buddy. I'm so sorry. Mati pulled out from under Wheeler's hands and ran out of the hut. Wheeler started after him, but Cat put a hand on his shoulder, holding him back. I know you want to go to him, but let him be for a while. Gaia and I will go when the time is right. If you go, the others will want to go. And besides, I have the feeling he'll open up more to Gaia than any of the rest of us, he said, blushing a tad as he said the last part. Cap, Wheeler began quietly, pulling the superhero aside. Do you like Gaia? What is this? Captain Planet shook his head firmly. Nah, actually, I feel that you would open up more to me, and Linka, G, and Kwame would open up equally both to Gaia and me. But Gaia is more or less Mother Earth, and that is a big part of Mate's culture. The native South American tribes deeply treasure the Earth, as it is the source of all things needed for life to survive. That is why I say he will open up more to Gaia, he explained. Wheeler nodded slowly in understanding. Yeah, I can understand that, and I can understand too why you want Gaia to go. I see now how she would be of greatest comfort to him. He looked up at his friend. Thanks for explaining that to me, Cap. I really appreciate it. He graciously thanked him. No problem, Wheeler, he agreed, patting him on the back. They all sat back down except for Captain Planet and Gaia, who remained standing. The six talked about the life of the lovable man otherwise known as the Crocodile Hunter for an hour before Gaia and Cap decided it was time to find Mate. Cap and Gaia walked along the island using their telepathy to locate the young Kayapo. As they approached the spot their telepathy had indicated, Gaia suddenly stopped Cap and pointed to the underbrush. There lay Mate, fallen fast asleep. His cheeks were streaked with glistening lines, and his breathing was harsh and restless, indicating that he had cried himself to sleep. Gaia glided softly across the forest floor to where her youngest Planeteer lay sleeping. She laid a gentle hand on his arm and sent him soothing thoughts through telepathy. He quickly awoke and started to cry again. Gaia drew him into a hug. Mate, it will be all right, she assured him, holding the sobbing boy close to her. She teared up herself as she watched the young man crying his heart out. That's it. Cry it all out. I shouldn't cry, though. Death is a natural part of life, and I am a man. The crying should be left to the women, he exclaimed, repeating what he had been taught as a child. Oh, but Mate, that is not the case. It is perfectly natural to cry. It is a terrible tragedy, and crying is the first step in the healing process. Go ahead. Neither I nor Captain Planet will think any less of you for crying, she assured him. Cap came over and nodded, agreeing with Gaia. He crouched next to Mate and rubbed his back. Cap and Gaia saw the 5 Planeteers as sons and daughters, and now their son was in distress, so they acted in the manner any parents would. After another 15 minutes had passed, Mate sniffled again and stopped crying. How did it happen? He inquired, still trembling, wiping away the tears from his eyes. He was filming a documentary for his daughter. He was swimming in the ocean and he got too close to a stingray. Its barb put a hole in his heart, Cap explained gently, still rubbing Mate's back. You going to be okay? He inquired. Mate shook his head. I don't know yet. I still need some time. I just feel sad that a man that loved animals so much would be killed by one, he cried, beginning to shake harder again. I know, Mate, Gaia murmured. I know exactly what you mean. But at least he went doing what he loves the most. Being with animals, teaching the world about them. If a person is going to die, it should at least be in the process of doing what he loves, Mate nodded. Which means that I'm going to die reading one of these stories one of these days. Yes, I know, but it doesn't make it any less difficult to know that, he sniffled. I remember when his favorite crocodile died. He cried about it and mentioned how much he loved her, like his own wife. Yes, I remember that too, Cap agreed, nodding. He had a heart of gold, and like you said, he really did love animals. He once said, I have no fear of losing my life. If I have to save a koala or a kangaroo or a snake or a crocodile, I will save it. I remember that, Gaia exclaimed. He also said that what he wanted to be remembered for was conservation and preservation. He loved his kids, too, very much. I know, Mate drew in a shaky breath. It's just extra hard. All those times I saw him cheat death, staring it in the face but pulling through every time, and this time he really didn't make it. The doctors and his friends said that if the barb had hit anywhere else it wouldn't have been fatal, but this one pierced his heart, like I said. That's not something that a person can survive, Cap gently added. We are all mourning his passing, just like you. He was one of the greatest and most well-known eco-heroes, and it is a hard and great loss. But you are greatly needed by the other Planeteers, and they are all very worried about you. We'll stay if you want, but if you want, we'll go back to the others and wait so that you can have some time to yourself, to mourn alone without having us here. Mate shook his head again. I want to go back, but I don't think I'll be any good if there's an eco-emergency. I might need some time off, he choked out, looking down, feeling bad for having to say that. But to his surprise, Gaia and Cap nodded. We understand, Gaia assured him. Here, give me your ring. Mati slid it off with a slight pain. He never took his ring off, so this was really difficult for him. He gently laid the ring in Gaia's open palm. She closed her fingers around it. Don't worry, Mati. I'll take care of it. I'll talk to the other Planeteers and see if one of them will take your ring until you're ready to rejoin us. All right? Mati nodded and smiled a little. Thank you, Gaia. Captain, I appreciate your kindness and understanding. Anytime, Mati. You all know that you can always come to us if you need to talk about anything. We'll always be here for you, Gaia promised. Yes, Gaia is right, Cap agreed. We both care very much about you. He put his arm across Mati's shoulders and gave him a quick squeeze. I think you'll be all right. Are you ready to go back now? Mati nodded again. Okay, let's go. Wheeler sat by the window waiting for Cap and Gaia to come back with Mati. They had been gone for 45 minutes already, and he was beginning to get worried. Wheeler, come away from the window. They'll to being along soon, Linka insisted, assuring him. I sure hope so, Linka. If they're not back soon, I'll be really worried, he replied, clearly worried. Linka sat next to him. Wheeler, do not worry. Mati is with Gaia and Captain Planet. There is no reason to worry. Look, they are coming now. Wheeler looked out the window and saw Mati walking into the compound, his head hanging, and Cap and Gaia on either side of him. They stopped about halfway to the common hut. Then Mati looked up at the two of them and spoke briefly with them. He hugged them both, and they hugged him back. Then he walked to his own hut. Gaia and Cap continued to the common hut. When they entered, everyone stood up and asked them what had happened. Mati has opted to take a leave of absence from the Planeteers until he has gotten over Steve Irwin's death, Gaia explained simply. He's on bereavement leave. He gave us his ring. Which one of you wants to take over Hart until he gets back? Cap inquired. I'll do it, Wheeler replied without hesitation. That's fine with me, Kwame said, but I think you should wear it on your other hand so your fire ring doesn't accidentally harm it, Wheeler nodded. All right, he agreed. Gaia laid the ring in Wheeler's hand and he slipped it onto the ring finger of his left hand. Then he looked back up. How is Mati holding up? He inquired quietly. Gaia and Cap looked at each other for a moment before looking back at him. He's still got a ways to go before he'll be completely all right. I'd say give him at least 2 weeks. If he's not better by then, give me a call and summon Captain Planet and we'll go see him together and see what we can do. All right, Wheeler said. You guys had better go, huh? Captain Planet and Gaia nodded. Gaia faded away while Cap jumped up into the air, splitting into the different powers after shouting, "The power is yours!" It was a little weird for Wheeler to see 2 different powers returning to the ring on each hand. He turned to the others. Well, I suggest we eat. Wheeler can bring Mati a plate when I'm finished cooking lunch, Guy suggested. All right. The rest of us will get started on our assigned chores, Kwame agreed. The others nodded in agreement, and Guy headed off to the kitchen to start on the lunch. When Wheeler took the sandwiches Guy had made to Mati, he simply nibbled at the sandwich. He didn't eat much for the next week and a half. After that, for the next 3 days, his appetite slowly increased, but it still wasn't enough. Eventually, the 2 weeks came and went, and one night around dinner time, out of concern for their friend, Wheeler took the heart ring, which he had mostly learned to control, and used it to summon Gaia. Then the 4 on-duty Planeteers gathered together. Once Gaia had arrived, Kwame began the chain as usual. Let our powers combine! Earth! Fire! Wheeler cried, throwing his right hand in the air. Wind! Linda continued, raising her ring. Water! Guy shouted. Heart! Wheeler exclaimed, lifting his left hand now. The light from the rings swirled around and combined in the middle. The beam of light shot down to the ground and Captain Planet rose out of it. By your powers combined, I am Captain Planet! He exclaimed. He slowly drifted to the ground. He looked at the 4 teenagers. How is Mati? He inquired, immediately sensing that it was with reference to the young Kayapo that he had been called. Wheeler shook his head. He's better, but he's barely eating anything, and he hardly comes out of his hut anymore. He just stays in there, flipping through magazines with pictures of Steve Irwin in them, watching episodes of the show that he's recorded, he explained softly. Cap, he's in complete denial, and I don't know what to do for him. Cap walked over to him and put a firm, gentle hand on his shoulder. Wheeler, it'll be okay. We'll take care of him, I promise. Cap then nodded toward Gaia. Gaia, you ready? Yes, Planet. Let's go. The 2 friends walked over toward the hut of the youngest in the group. They knocked lightly. "Come in, Wheeler," they heard the young man sigh. They looked at each other, knowing that he expected it was Wheeler come to bring his dinner. Cap nodded to Gaia once again. He sent her a telepathic message. "Well, let's go," she nodded in acceptance and opened the door, stepping in. "Mati," she said softly. He looked up, surprised to hear the voice of the much-respected spirit. "Gaia!" he exclaimed. "What's wrong? It cannot be an eco-emergency. You know I am off duty." "Your friends are concerned for you, Mati. Wheeler tells me that you're barely eating, and that you rarely leave this hut anymore. What's going on inside you, Mati?" she inquired, taking his hand in both of hers as Cap walked in, shutting the door behind him. Mati sighed. "I don't know, Gaia. I do not understand it. I've never had this much of a problem coping with the death before. It is natural, and I shouldn't be this upset about it. It happens, and I should have gotten over it on the first day," he exclaimed, angry with himself. Gaia shushed him, murmuring soothing words. Then she started to sing a strange yet beautiful melody. For some reason that Mati could not explain, he suddenly started to feel better about Steve Irwin's death. Soon, Gaia's song, otherwise known as Nature's Remedy, lulled him to sleep. Gaia tucked him in under his covers, and she and Cap quietly left the hut. They walked to where the other Planeteers were gathered. Wheeler turned to them. "How is he?" he inquired of the pair. Gaia smiled. "I think he'll be all right now, but you must not wake him up. Let him sleep until he is ready to wake up, or it will be undone. I sang to him the same song I sang to Linka when she was recovering from the effects of bliss." Linka suddenly nodded. "If you sang him that song, he is sure to be all right when he wakes up." Wheeler looked at her in surprise. "Hey, babe, your English is getting much better. Have you been practicing?" Linka smiled happily and nodded again. "Well, we have to go. I'll be back in the morning to check on him, okay?" Gaia said. "Absolutely," Kwame replied. "You know you're always welcome. After all, Hope Island is your home," Cap laughed. "He does have a point, Gaia," he agreed. G smiled. "Thank you both so much for helping Mati," she sincerely thanked them. They smiled back. "You're welcome, Planet. You ready to go?" Gaia inquired of her companion. Cap nodded. "Let's go, Gaia. Remember, guys, the power is yours!" He split into the different powers and the beams of light returned to the rings. Then Gaia faded slowly out of sight. Gaia returned the next morning, as promised. She sat in Mati's hut waiting patiently for him to wake up. Suddenly his eyes blinked open, and for the first time in 2 weeks Mati woke with a smile on his face. He saw Gaia sitting next to him. "Thank you, Gaia. I really needed that." Gaia smiled as well. "So, Mati, are you ready to come back?" she asked. "Yes, Gaia, I am more than ready." She smiled happily, leaving the hut so he could get ready for his day in privacy, and when he emerged, she walked with him to the common hut, where the remaining 4 Planeteers sat, eating their breakfast. They all looked up happily as their younger friend walked in with a joyful smile on his face. "Hey, little buddy, how do you feel?" Wheeler inquired. Mati grinned. "Much better. Like I said, death is a natural part of life, and Steve Irwin died doing what he loved the most. That's all anyone could ever ask for," he replied. Wheeler smiled. "So I take it you're ready to take your ring back?" Mati nodded. "Yeah, even while I was sad, I missed having that ring on my finger and going out on missions with the rest of you." Wheeler pulled off the ring and tossed it back to him. Mati put his ring on, and suddenly everything felt exactly the way it was supposed to. He was a Planeteer again, and that made him happy. It was terrible the way Steve Irwin had died, but he wouldn't have wanted to be remembered the way Mati had been remembering him. He would have wanted to be remembered in happiness, not in sadness, and that was the way Mati was going to remember him for the rest of his life. The end. So... I feel bad for laughing at this story. I don't remember when Steve Irwin passed away, but this story I think was written around within days of it happening, because, September 10th, 2006, the story specifically mentions Mati waking up on the morning of September 4th, 2006. So this was written within a week, I guess, of Steve Irwin's passing. I've got to say, this was a good story. It was written very well, again, by, somebody who understands punctuation, capitalization, proper grammar. Clearly somebody who's a big fan of Captain Planet, because I forgot Gaia was a character in Captain Planet, and I could not name you the names of the 5 Planeteers. I would get Wheeler and Kwame correct, and then I'd be like, and then the other 3. So and I couldn't even tell you what rings they had. But this, I mean, as far as tributes go, you could do a lot worse, but I felt like having a Steve Irwin tribute in a Captain Planet fanfic was just absurd enough to make it into this show. It's also made me realize that I can read stories that are a lot longer and hit our target time. I want these podcasts to be somewhere around 45 to 60 minutes long, and I guess I just mistimed myself because I'm looking at the recording right now and we're at like the 20-minute mark, so we're falling way short of the goalposts here. But anyways, let's go to the reviews of A Hero Lost, a tribute to Steve Irwin, and see what the peanut gallery has to say. One commenter says, "Great story. I printed it out along with another one of your stories. You're a great writer. I love your work. Please keep it up." That's got to be the most flattering thing that a fan fiction writer can hear. I printed out one of your stories. I made a physical hard copy of this Captain Planet fanfic for me to keep forever and ever. I printed it out, I stapled it together, or I punched holes in it, I put it in a folder in a notebook of fanfics that I can go back and read later. I guess there's people out there that do that print out their favorite fanfics and keep them in a folder. I didn't, you know, I guess it doesn't surprise me, but I guess I also just never thought about that. Here's another longer comment. "A beautiful tribute story. I remember how shocked and sad I was when I found out. I was on DeviantArt and a friend had an announcement in her journal about it. There was a whole plethora of Steve Irwin tribute art on DA after that, including one of mine. If you went to DeviantArt and did a search for Steve Irwin, you'd find page after page of art for him, many of which show him in heaven, sometimes as an angel. Mine is like that, a cartoon Steve as an angel, standing on a cloud and saying, 'Crikey,' just something simple. What was just as shocking was the aftermath. Many stingrays turned up dead. Revenge killing by enraged Irwin fans, the news said, which is sad because Steve would never want to have his death to be avenged, especially against animals. Bindi is going to continue her dad's work and she will appear in an Animal Planet show along with Steve via videotape. I wish her well and I hope she is careful. We don't want to lose her as well. I have favorited this fic because I love Captain Planet. My favorite character is Ma-Ti, and I mourn Steve." So here's a comment that's left in all capital letters, so you know how I'm about to read it. "I think that story was a good story. Steve Irwin, like you said, was a good man who loved his wife and children. With respect," and then he signed it, and I'm not going to read his name because no names on this show. We got another comment that says, "What a touching story. You actually made me cry. I was so sad about Steve Irwin's death, and this was very cathartic. Thanks for writing." And then we have one more comment that says, "I have never read a Captain Planet fanfiction before. In fact, I haven't even seen Captain Planet except for when I was growing up in the 90s. I was searching something about Steve Irwin online and came across this, and I'm glad I did. It was a beautiful thing you wrote. Brought a tear to my eye. I really love Steve, and I still can't believe he's gone." So it's kind of hard. I'm not, like I said, we're not here to dunk on anybody on Fanfiction Factory. We're here to just observe strange and fringe fanfics, and I think this story falls into that category. But you can clearly see that a lot of people, you know, the author and a lot of these people in the comments were really moved by this story. They were really upset with Steve Irwin's death. You know, I was too when it happened. You know, it's anytime somebody passes away too soon, it's reason to be, you know, sad and reason to mourn. You know, it's seeing this outpouring of support. The last thing I expected was a Captain Planet fanfic featuring, you know, the characters themselves mourning the passing of Steve Irwin, with Captain Planet and Gaia just like hanging around, just doing whatever. I don't know what they do when they're gone. I know Captain Planet lives inside the rings. I don't know what that means. And I don't know what Gaia does when she disappears. I presume she goes back, to like the center of the earth, because she's the spirit of Mother Earth. She's the embodiment of that. I don't know how any of these mechanics work. I don't remember Captain Planet. The whole show feels like a fever dream to me, okay? All I remember is the phrase, "looting and polluting is not the way." That's it. But that's gonna do it for A Hero Lost, a tribute to Steve Irwin, which is not the worst thing we've read on this show. It was touching, it was meaningful, but like I said, I feel like it was just fringe enough to skate in on a technicality, just to kind of show the breadth of stories that I'd like to feature on this podcast. You know, there's a lot of stories out there, and trying to pick out the best or weirdest or oddest or strangest, or I'm not going to say worst, but trying to find stories for this podcast is a real challenge, because you don't want to overdo something. And you don't want to harp on one subject for too long. You don't want to harp on one franchise for too long. Like, I don't want to read, 4 episodes worth of Sonic the Hedgehog fanfics back to back to back. You know what I mean? So this was just an interesting deviation down another road, seeing a snapshot of the internet, when Steve Irwin passed away. So we're gonna visit more fanfics that are snapshots of events in time, and characters from other series reacting to them. Of course, coming up later this year is the 9/11 episode. So hint, hint, wink, wink. I give this story a pass. It was good. It was written well, and the author meant well. It's not grimdark. It's not gory. It's not cringy. It's just heartfelt. And you can tell the author cared. And I appreciate that they cared. So that's going to do it for Fanfiction Factory for this installment. I've been your host, Draco from Gatorbox. And if you enjoy the show, please let us know. I know you can't leave comments here on Spotify, but like I've said before, we also have the podcast up on YouTube. And if you want to just search up Fanfiction Factory on YouTube, you'll find us there, and you can leave us some feedback there if you'd like to get in touch with us. So, with that said, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time. This is Draco, signing off.
Fanfiction Factory is a production of Gator Company. To support the podcast, please visit patreon.com/Gatorbox to make a pledge today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next journey.